welcome to another edition of Marquette in Motion. We're your hosts, Morgan Minster
and Amber Krieg. On today's show, we'll be reporting on some of the new classes offered at Marquette in the second semester, telling you about conference large group speech, answering your questions in You Ask, We Answer,
and as always, updating you on Marquette sports and events. But first, Brooklyn Moore is here to tell us who she'll be interviewing this week for our weekly senior interviews. Who is it this week, Brooklyn?
I will be interviewing senior Erica Timmerman.
Thanks, Brooklyn. I'm sure that we're all looking forward to that interview later on in the show.
Well, I've been looking forward to this next week of school. We'll finally be in the second semester.
You're right, Morgan. Tuesday will see the start of the second semester for our students. But on Monday, all of the teachers will be at school for Professional Development Day. During Monday and on other professional development days, Marquette Principal Mr. Kaiser and kindergarten teacher Mrs. Kilberg will be leading the teachers in a program aimed at using more creative teaching strategies.
The session will be based on the book Teach Like a Pirate by Dave Burgess, a creator of several educational seminars. Our teachers will be using the ideas and strategies presented in the book to encourage more student participation and to help inspire teachers to lead more engaging lessons to create interest among students.
Prior to Christmas break, each teacher was given his or her own complimentary copy of Teach Like a Pirate. Teachers have read the book in preparation for Monday's class. Teachers who register for credit will receive 1 relicensure credit for the professional development course, while all teachers' fees for this AEA-approved class will be paid for entirely by the school.
Well, now that we've talked about teaching like a pirate, there's only one more question I have.
What's that, Morgan?
Are you ready for jam time?
Aye, aye, Captain.
As many Marquette students know, second semester doesn't only mean that the school year is half over.
That's right, it also means new classes and new electives.
Today we are talking about those second semester electives.
Let's start with the elective that seemed to be a favorite among students, strategic reading, taught by Mr. Bishop. Strategic reading is reminiscent of the old accelerated reading system used in the middle school.
In this system, books are given points based on the difficulty of the book. Students must read enough books to reach a point goal that they are giving at the beginning of the semester.
Next up is print media, taught by Mrs. Schrader. In this class, students are tasked with making the amazing yearbooks that the students receive at the end of the year.
In choir, taught by Miss Everding, students use their beautiful voices to get ready for upcoming competitions and concerts. With topics of sociology, students learn and discuss current events that are happening around the world. This class is taught by Mr. Sieverty.
In financial math, taught by Mrs. Moore, students learn the ins and outs of money management, a useful skill to know after high school.
In probability and statistics, Mrs. Storm teaches students how to calculate, as the name implies, probability and statistics.
Mr. Hollinsby teaches students the skills needed to be good leaders in the elective leadership.
Mr. Hollinsby also teaches Iowa Studies, a class where students learn about the history of our very own state.
In Spanish, Mrs. Stickrod, in fun and innovative ways, teaches students how to fluently speak Spanish. In economics, students learn about financial systems and how the government handles money. This class is also taught by Mr. Hollinsby.
Contrary to popular belief, our generation doesn't know everything about electronics, as proven by Mrs. Moore's Computers 1 and 2 classes. Those electives teach students programs such as Excel, Access, and Word, as well as keyboard shortcuts.
Well, I've just computed the amount of time we have left, and it's time we wrap up. For Marquette in Motion, this has been
Jam Time!
With Justina Denlinger, Allison Hager,
Megan Litter,
and Mackenzie Kilberg.
Don't go to class just yet. Marquette in Motion will be back after these messages.
Welcome back to Marquette in Motion. Christina Coos is here with her report on conference large group speech.
Early this morning, a group of 21 high school students headed out to Alburnett High School. They will be spending the day performing in front of judges at the Conference Large Group Speech Contest. Speech students have been working under the guidance of speech coach Mrs. Carol Scott Feller for the past month to perfect their pieces. Groups of 2 to 6 people work together to perform a variety of different pieces. This year, we have groups taking part in the categories of musical theater, ensemble, and group improvisation. In musical theater, groups of 2 to 6 students perform a series of musical selections from a musical for the judges. This year's musical theater pieces are from Wicked and Legally Blonde. Ensemble pieces are short plays that are performed within 15 minutes. This year's ensembles include The Empty Chair, If Women Worked as Men Do, and The Fourth Digit. There are also 2 improvisation groups this year. In this category, the group randomly draws a topic and is then given 2 minutes to prepare a scenario based on that topic. Their performance can last up to 5 minutes. Each speech group that performs today will be given a score of 1, 2, or 3, with 1 being the highest. Groups will also be given suggestions to help improve their pieces for next Saturday's district contest in Monticello. Good luck to our speech teams. For Marquette in Motion, this has been Christina Coos.
Thanks for that report, Christina. Now it's time to bring in Lauren Kilberg with this week's edition of You Ask, We Answer. Our first question today, Lauren, reads, I heard Christina tell us last week about the seniors who made the homecoming court, but who was chosen as king and queen, and how was this decided?
Well, before anyone can be chosen as the king or queen, they first have to be on homecoming court. Each member of the senior class was able to vote for 4 girls and 4 boys to be on the court. The students receiving the most votes were selected to be on the court. The entire high school was then able to vote for one of the 4 king candidates and one of the 4 queen candidates. In between the boys and girls varsity game last Friday, the king and queen were announced. This year's queen and king were Anna Ambrosi and Christian Mickles. At the homecoming dance, instead of the traditional king and queen slow dance, the duo had a dance-off with teams they chose. King Christian Mickles took the victory by a landslide after selecting our principal, Mr. Kaiser, as one of his dance team members.
Mr. Kaiser sure is a busy guy. I'm sure he'll be at the PTO breakfast on Sunday, January 24th. I was a little confused, though. Catholic Schools Week isn't until February 1st through February 5th. I thought the breakfast always kicked off or ended Catholic Schools Week. Was this a misprint?
Well, thank you for that question. I'm sure it was looming heavily on all of our listeners' minds. Now, normally the PTO breakfast does kick off or end our Catholic Schools Week celebration. This year, however, the schedule was packed full. Marquette's Tech is taking place the Sunday before Catholic Schools Week, and Confirmation Mass is taking place the Sunday after. That's why we're asking everyone to join us on January 24th in Kiefer Hall for a delicious breakfast. Don't worry, we'll be reminding you all about it in the upcoming weeks.
Speaking of those upcoming weeks, it looks like the weather will be getting even colder here in eastern Iowa during that time. One listener asks, what do the elementary students do for recess when the weather is so cold outside?
Well, if the weather is below 5 degrees Fahrenheit, our students have indoor recess. In these situations, our elementary students pull out their board games or blocks or have fun in the mech during their indoor recess time.
Those were always my favorite recesses.
Mine too, Morgan. As for now, though, I'm glad we get to spend our time recording Marquette in Motion instead of playing games. Be sure to stay tuned in and keep sending us your questions at marquetteinmotion@marquettecatholic.com. Until then, this has been Lauren Kilberg. Our program will return after these messages.
We're back with Marquette in Motion. Sam Peters and Jonathan Herrig are here with your Marquette Sports and Updates report.
Thanks, Morgan. Marquette's annual Catholic Schools Week is approaching, and it all gets kicked off Sunday, January 24th, with the annual PTO breakfast fundraiser, held from 8 to noon in Kiefer Hall, which is below St. Joseph's Church. And now, Jonathan, tell our listeners how Marquette ate up our opponents in last week's homecoming game.
Last Friday, the 4 Marquette basketball teams played Coweta for our annual homecoming game. Luckily, Marquette kicked off the homecoming weekend on a good note, with all of our teams coming out with a win. On Tuesday, Marquette played in yet another conference quad, this time against Easton Valley. Both the JV and varsity girls won their games, but the JV and varsity boys were unsuccessful, with varsity losing by only 5 points in the final stretch. And finally, once again, Marquette played a quad at Midlands Court last night. We will have those results for you next week.
For Marquette in Motion, this has been Sam Peters
and Jonathan Herrig
with your Marquette Sports and Updates report.
Thanks, boys. Brooklyn Moore is here with this week's senior interview.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brooklyn Moore, and this week I'll be interviewing senior Erica Timmerman. So, Erica, between playing in the sub-state volleyball game and performing in the fall play, you've had quite a busy first semester. Can you tell our listeners what's on your agenda for your second semester?
I'll be participating in group and individual speech, the spring musical, quiz bowl, archery, and also soccer later in the semester.
That sounds like fun. So, you mentioned archery before. Have you had any meets yet?
Yes, I have.
How did that go?
They were good. I improved from the first one to the second one.
That's good. Well, I'm sure you're a big asset to your team. Not only your archery team, but your other teams too, including your quiz bowl team. How has quiz bowl been doing so far?
Good. We got third place at the Clinton Community College Quiz Bowl competition and second place at the Prince of Peace competition.
Wow, good job. Well, your extracurricular activities may be heating up, But homecoming came to a close a week ago. Your last homecoming. Try not to cry on me here, but what's your all-time favorite moment from homecoming week out of your 4 years in high school?
Mine was at the dance itself. It was being hypnotized because I always could remember what happened to me after the dance.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were hypnotized. What do you remember from it?
I remember that the male that hypnotized us, he had my date disappear, and then my father reappeared, and that upset me very much, and I started crying. But then when I woke up from this point, I was sitting on my date's lap, and I then again was happy.
Aw, that's good. We've talked a lot about your present, but what about your future? Can you tell our listeners about your future plans at all?
I plan on attending Loras College in the fall, and I plan on getting a minor in music and a major in business.
What will your classes exactly be like?
I'm sure I'll have some music lessons, but then some basic business classes to figure out what area of business I'd like to be a part of.
Okay, sounds good. Final question before we go. Where do you see yourself in 20 years?
I hope to stay within Iowa, and I hope that I have a stable job and I've started a family of my own.
How many kids?
Unsure at this point.
Okay, thanks for letting me interview you, Erica, and thanks to all our listeners. Make sure to keep tuning in for more interviews. For Marquette in Motion, this has been Brooklyn Moore.
Thanks for reporting, everyone.
And thanks for tuning in. For Marquette in Motion, this has been Morgan Minster
And Amber Krieg.
And remember, stay informed, stay involved, stay
in motion.